Get started. I want to thank everyone for their participation in this inaugural Research in Sustainable Marketing Symposium. I'm really excited, thrilled, and honored to be with you today. The opportunity to chair the session is an opportunity I don't get too often to have the opportunity to interact with some of the most productive researchers in the field, people whose work I've read for years. It's great to get to know you a little bit better. So today we're going to begin this 70-minute session with each member of the panel presenting a few of their ideas, offering some ideas concerning opportunities with respect to sustainable marketing. Then we'll proceed the audience to take questions from them. I'll moderate the questions. I'll follow the chat box for that. And the order we're going to follow is Kate, Jochen, Sandra, Atul, and CB. So let me start with Kate White. Kate, good morning, good early morning to you, 6 a.m. Kate is Professor of Marketing and Behavioral Sciences at the Sauder School of Business in the University of British Columbia. She's the Academic Director of the Peter H. Dillon Center for Business Ethics and holds a professorship in Consumer Insights, Pro-Social Consumption, and Sustainability. Kate was identified as an up-and-coming young scholar by the Marketing Science Institute, and in 2015 was honored as one of the top 5 marketing researchers in the world by the AMA. Many of us know her from the 2019 paper Shift, as well as the Harvard Business Review the same year, The Elusive Green Consumer. Some of the most provocative work in the last few years in sustainable marketing. We're excited to have you here today, Kate. Please take it over.
Thank you. I will just share my screen here. Does that look reasonable?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. I'm just playing with my view. Okay, awesome. All right, I'll get going here. What I thought I would do is talk a little bit about thinking about generating research ideas by taking a bit of a consumer focus, so taking the consumer's point of view. And so one of the things that we see a lot when we're asking consumers to engage in sustainable behaviors is we see these really marked intention action gaps. And so what I mean by that is that if you ask people if they want to engage in sustainable behaviors, not everybody, but for the most part, people are fairly positive about this. They'll report positive attitudes and positive intentions, but when you actually look at their behaviors, they don't always follow suit. And so this is just one industry survey where they found that the majority of consumers said they wanted to buy things that were sustainable. It's even higher for Gen X and millennials, but when you actually look at their behaviors, they don't always follow suit. And so the question is why? What's going on here? And could we figure out, by taking the consumer's point of view, different and new and novel research questions, perhaps by really kind of digging in on the consumer side of things? And so at the very basic level, part of the problem is just the way our brains work as human beings, right? So probably this is something a lot of you have seen before, but this is one dual process model of decision making, which kind of says, look, there's 2 different ways we tend to think as human beings, and we kind of use both of these different systems. So system 1 is when you're thinking in a way that's very sort of quick, very fast. Maybe you're using associations or instincts or emotions or cognitive decision rules, and you're making decisions in a very quick, effortless manner, which actually can serve us well at times. Obviously, we can't be thinking carefully about every little decision we make. So in many ways, this serves us well, this type of thinking. The other one is system 2, which is when we're more conscious, we're more rational, we're more effortful, we're more deliberative in our thinking. This often gets talked about where system 1 can lead to sort of heuristics and biases. What I think is interesting is if you think about this in the light of the intention action gap is if you think about it, people are probably in system 2 when they set their intentions and when they form their attitudes, right? So they're more likely to be thinking carefully, weighing the pros and cons, being deliberative. But most of these things we're asking people to do when we're thinking about sustainable behaviors, we're often, there are these day-to-day decisions, right? It's like, what did you eat for breakfast? How are you getting to work? Did you click on that Facebook ad that popped up in your feed, right? A lot of the small things we're doing are all system 1. So I think that's the first issue, is just the way we make decisions and the way we act as human beings. And obviously this matters for other things too. So health behaviors and financial savings behaviors. And so there's something else going on for sustainability as well. It's not just this. I think sustainability is really sticky. It's really hard to change. And so some of the things that we do talk about in that shift paper are that sustainability has this other layer of other things, other barriers, other challenges as well. So I'll just mention these quickly. So the first one is the self-other trade-off, which is basically this idea that if I'm asking you to do something sustainable, for most consumers, they perceive some kind of trade-off. So maybe it takes more time, or it feels like it costs more money, or maybe it's less desirable in some way. And we're asking people to do this for something that's outside of the self, right? So it's for the environment, it's for other people, and it's hard for people to make that trade-off. The second one is the long time horizon, which is this trade-off of time, where sustainable behaviors, you're usually asking people to do something where the payoff, you're not going to see it for a long time. It's not going to be an immediate payoff. And we know that people are very present biased, and they will trade off things that are more in the here and now for things that are sort of further down. The third one is the challenge of collective action, which basically means when I'm asking you to do a sustainable behavior, to see the payoff, to see the benefit, it needs to be just more than me. It can't just be me. It needs to be more people engaging in the sustainable behavior. So for some consumers, this can be a little bit daunting, right? It can kind of feel like my behavior is just a little bit of a drop in a bucket. And then the fourth one is need to replace automatic with controlled processes, which means some of these day-to-day system 1 behaviors are they're automatic, they're habitual, and it's hard to override them. So that's a challenge as well. And then the last one is the problem of abstractness, which is when you talk to consumers about things like sustainability, it feels very, that's a term and a concept that's very vague and removed from the self, very abstract, and it can be hard for consumers to grasp. And so I think all of these things layer up, and I think there's more. I could probably have a list of 20 things. But these sort of layer up as challenges to encouraging consumers to engage in these sustainable behaviors. And so the model that I won't go into a lot of detail on, the shift model, what I want to just say about it is, if you think about it, a lot of the different, so basically this was a review paper where we looked at what are the drivers of sustainable consumer behavior. And we reviewed marketing, consumer behavior, economics, psychology papers. And if you look at these different factors that kind of came out of the review, really they're all stemming from these different barriers, right? So really understanding the barriers and thinking about the nuances of these barriers led to a lot of these interventions that work. And so I think that continuing to think about some of these nuances within these barriers is one interesting way of thinking of additional research ideas. So if you think about it, I'll just say a couple, but I'll see what all the factors are. So it's social influence, habit formation, individual self, feelings and cognition, and tangibility. And if you think about it, so if you go into like social influence, for example, one of the things we talk about in the social, and obviously there's a lot within each one, a lot of nuance within each of these factors, but one of the things we talk about are things like social norms, right? If other people are doing the behavior, consumers will be more likely to do it as well. And I think, for example, that helps deal with things like that problem of collective action. Or if you think about habit formation techniques, so how do we break unsustainable habits and how do we shape more positive habits, that deals with that problem of automatic and control processes. So a lot of these sort of come out of some of the barriers that exist for people. And so moving forward, what can we do to consider and think about other innovative ideas in sustainable marketing? And so I have just sort of two sort of buckets of things to suggest. So the first bucket is keep thinking about these barriers for these consumer behaviors, but also think about the positives as well. So think about what are the motivators for these behaviors. And I mean two things when I say that. The first is thinking about what are the positives for the sustainable behaviors, but then also what are the positives for the alternatives that people are doing instead? So why are people doing these unsustainable things and what's the true motivator for them? And so really drilling down and understanding what's going on psychologically for people when they do these behaviors. And I hear lots of people ask me, they'll say, you know, I keep doing this thing and I know I shouldn't be doing it and I don't want to do it and I know it's unsustainable and I keep doing it, right? And so when those types of behaviors, what is going on for people and really digging down and trying to figure out what's going on. And then the other thing I'll just add is I think there's a lot of different types of sustainable consumption that we're seeing consumers doing these days. And so a lot of the stuff in my review paper, sustainable behavior was recycling or choosing a product that had some sustainable element over another, right? There were a lot of the behaviors are those kind of behaviors. I think there's a lot of novel behaviors we can look at these days. So thinking about more circular behaviors. So I have lists there of like buying durable, extending product life, reusing and repurposing, repairing and consumer experience, different types of innovations. So I think there's lots of opportunities within all these different behaviors to really dig in, take a consumer view and think about what are the barriers, what are the motivators, why are people doing, so really getting into these and really taking a consumer's viewpoint. Yeah, so I'll stop there. I think I don't know. We're taking out questions at the end. Is that the plan?
That's correct.
Okay,
We're
perfect.
right at 10 minutes.
Okay.
Outstanding. Okay. Thank you very much.